Okay, we are live. Is there someone that would like to offer the opening prayer for us tonight?
I can.
Awesome, thanks.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful to gather together as a group this week and to discuss this case study. Thankful for the classes that we have, and we can go to BYU, Idaho. That provides such a good education for us. Help us to understand material and to be able to apply it to the things that are going on in our lives right now and the things that will come up in the future. When we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Awesome. So this week, there's a lot to talk about for the case study, so I'm kind of just going to pick some stuff I think would be good for us to talk about and go over. So with the, I guess, agenda or whatever it has here, it starts out with the question about what is the fast casual segment that they mentioned in the case study.
So it's not just your regular walk-in fast food. It's supposed to be a little bit higher quality foods, but yet still quick to get to. One of the ones I know they talk about quite a bit in there is Chipotle, which would be my favorite. So
There you go. Okay. I think it mentioned something else. I've never been to Starbucks, but a lot of people I know love that. Didn't they throw that into the same kind of grouping there?
Kind of said it was one of the competitors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's in there.
No, I knew I saw it. But,
Totally.
Fair enough. So the next question here. So we all know what the answer is, but it says, what is the challenge facing Noodles and Company within this segment?
That's actually a good question because I didn't know what the challenge was. Like, further expansion was the only thing that came to my mind. But I'm sitting here thinking, man, they've done really well. They're on the right track.
Yeah.
I think what I got out of it was toward the end of this, as they were looking at all that expansion, they were trying to get up to the 300 stores, but all of a sudden they had a lot of competition from big players in it. When McDonald's bought into Chipotle, that put a big, huge push in that market, and then you had Wendy's that bought, it was Wendy's that bought one of the other franchises and was trying to make them big quick. There was a couple of other ones, Baja Fresh, PF Chang's that was creating Payway and putting them in. So they were all of a sudden they had a lot more competition in that same area.
Yeah, that's true. The kind of one of the things here that it mentions is the overcrowding and rapidly increasing population interest. So kind of what we talked about here.
Yep.
Also, I think Sarah just sent a message. If you in the window, if you look up to the left, top left, it says chat. If we open that, Sarah probably just be able to type into that chat, and we can all see it.
I'm already in it, so I don't know if anybody's typed in it yet. There you go.
Yeah, okay, that was me. Cool.
Okay, so further expansion, increasing competitors. Was there something else that we mentioned, or was that pretty much it?
Well, the other thing that was happening is this was, 2002, 2003. There was a huge explosion in the economy. And so there was a lot of new stuff being built, and the price of property skyrocketed. And so in order for them to build those places in the in the locations where they were trying to get in the retail markets and put themselves in those places, it was getting a lot more expensive quickly, and it was eating up a lot more of their cash.
Yeah, that's right. I remember reading that actually. Now that you bring that up. Finish typing real quick. Okay, so obviously we've kind of already talked about this, but I'm just kind of bringing it up. It says, what is the specific challenge facing Noodles and Company? The hint that it gives here says meeting the unanticipated growth. And this one I found interesting, internal turmoil. I just thought that was an interesting one for them to throw out there. So now we're going to go into the analysis section here. Now, obviously, we can take a lot of different ideas or time with these, but let's kind of keep them short because there's some really good ones at the end that I want to talk about and go over. So one of the questions here says, is working full-time as an employee while developing a new business a good idea or a bad idea? And it says, give your opinion with support and reference at least 2 articles. Obviously, I don't think any of us had time to do that, or at least I didn't. But what are some feedback that you guys have? Is it a good idea or bad idea working full-time to develop a new business?
Well, I think he took it in a very interesting way. When he moved, he knew he had to be able to support his family. And so in order to take that burden off of him and make him, make decisions that would try and get a company up and running too quickly, he was able to, provide for his family and work, but he was direct with them and said, I'm going to be here until I get this up and going, and then I'm going to plan on leaving. But it gave him it provided a way for him to provide and not be burdened by, trying to draw off of it prematurely.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think Sarah did, and I think she said about the same thing.
Yeah, I agree as well with that. I mean, I think it's really difficult to start a business, and especially a business that you're hoping to expand like that while having kids at home and things like that. He said that he missed his daughter's first birthday party. My dad went through a similar situation. He didn't start up a huge company, but he started up his own business, and I don't know, it was kind of difficult. We didn't see him for a little while. We saw him, but he was just always busy. So I mean, it's a risk to take, but paid off in the end.
Yeah. Just kind of a side note here. Is anybody still typing in the chat box? Because I'm not receiving anything.
Sarah is.
Oh, that's weird. I'm not getting those messages for some reason. I figured she was because I heard it, but
yeah, I had to go back just to the Hangout screen instead of the video screen.
yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not seeing it. So
Yeah, I'm seeing her comments there. That's weird.
Yep.
Well, Sarah, I apologize. I can't see it. Does someone want to read kind of what Sarah mentioned? So that way, I can kind of have an idea.
Yeah, I could. She said, I think if you're building a business and paying yourself, there's less money to put back into the business and help the business grow. So that's where have another full-time job can be a benefit. And then she said, it's okay, Seth.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Sarah. I don't know what's going on, but okay, yeah. I mean, I would agree with all what's been said too. I mean, it would definitely be tough to do for sure.
Yeah.
So then the next question says here, Can Noodles and Company maintain their corporate culture through aggressive growth? Why or why not?
I think that's probably the key to this, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say afterwards at the end of it, because they're trying to grow and develop so quickly, and they were trying to be very hands-off on with each place. And so it said that Kennedy was going all the time and visiting each individual store and trying to make sure that it always had that same feel to it. And they used that mantra: every bowl, every customer, every time. And so as long as they can do that, and I think that's one of the big fears that he would have in looking at the franchising. He wanted to make sure that he kept that value, because that's what he built it on.
That's true. Sorry, I'm just typing real quick.
Or sorry, it was every guest, every bowl, every time.
Yeah. Yep. I guess if no one else has anything to add to that, I mean, I would just agree with that. They were just super aggressive with it. I mean, I guess if it works for them and it continues to work, why would they stop? But
yeah, like Sarah said, it's going to take having the right managers in the right place and instilling that value and the culture in each of the management teams at their locations.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. I think personally, I think that would be kind of hard to do, which is what's one of the challenges they face, because I mean, it's hard to instill a culture if someone doesn't already understand what that culture should be.
But I think one of the things that they had for them, or going for them, is that they were really starting with a top down. The top management had that, and they were willing to come in and show it each and every time. And then that's what they immediately trained their managers that were coming in to take them, and they tried to get them ownership in the business by giving them all the different incentives. And if they could get them to take ownership and have that same vision, then that passed down.
True. Yeah. Okay, did Sarah add something?
Yeah, she said maybe bring the managers to the original locations and show it to the new guys, so they do all the traveling but still reaping the rewards, if that makes sense.
No, I would see that. I mean, that makes sense to me, at least.
Yep. I think one of the things that stood out to me is that even their, the people in their corporate office or their upper level management, they required them to each go out and work. I can't remember what it was, 1 day or 2 days in a store every couple of months, and so that they didn't lose touch.
I think that's a excellent point. How they came around and actually, because things change in the workplace, and quite frequently as well, and different problems arise. And so I think just by walking around, that was a great move. You're coming back down.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question here talks about a kind of a marketing strategy. So it says here, should Noodles and Company choose a strategy to be first to market or best to market? And once we talk about the two, we need to kind of talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of both of the strategies as it relates to Noodles and Company, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So in the PDF, it said, like it talks about it, it says Kennedy recalled from his days in consumer packaging goods that the first player in a market retained 40% going forward, but was not clear that that was the case in the restaurant industry. So that I didn't quite understand. Maybe some of you guys that are a little bit more intelligent than me could describe what that meant. Retained 40%. First to market, retained 40% going forward. Yeah, I didn't know what that meant.
Trying to find it.
I'm not
I'm on page
sure if this
13.
answers your question. I'm not sure if this answers your question, Jared.
Mhm.
What came to my mind when I was talking about that is they're like 40% of the people that they first marketed to or came to them first, since they were the first in the market, stayed with that company or that brand or that, whatever you want to call it. That's what I thought it meant, but I could be completely off base there.
No, that does actually make sense, that they were able to retain, that many people and they didn't leave just because they were there first. So I'd say that's one of the major benefits. As far as getting there first, it's easy to stay.
I think one of the other things that it said, didn't it say though that what you found is if somebody came in first and didn't have a good product, that kind of tainted the market as far as what people would then continue to go to. So I think they talked about like a small mom and pop place that came in. Let's see. What was it? Yeah, I can't find it now.
I also think there's kind of a happy medium, first to market and best to market. Like obviously you want to get out there, but kind of how Noodles and Company did, they went out there in their first place, but it wasn't very good. People, like, their reviews were like, oh, well, like it seems like a nice environment, but the food is subpar, I think was the wording they used. So yeah, it's good to get out there quick, but not where you're going to compromise best. So maybe a happy medium would be.
So Sarah's comment was best to market because the level of competition that is out there, they need to make a statement and come in hard and setting up a culture that people love and a place that people want to be. And that takes time to create and recreate. So it may not be viable to be the first. I'd rather have a quality product than something that was rushed and just thrown out there just to be the first.
Wow, that's a good statement right there, actually. I like that. Okay, so far right now for first, well, for the strategy Noodles and Company should choose, I have the best strategy. As far as the define advantages and disadvantages of each, first, retain 40% going forward. Typically, it's easy to stay, but it can taint the market if bad marketing or bad products. For the best, though, it allows to create quality products. Oftentimes, it allows you to have a more thorough opportunity. And then, like Jared mentioned, there also could be a happy medium for either for Noodles and Company, or maybe even any other business where you have to find kind of that middle ground. Anything else we're missing, or that you think we should add to that?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. This, okay.
No, I
Excellent.
just found the one deal that said that the other thing was, when if they're first to market, they get the first pick of employees. And so, and the talent that's available. So, that's one of the other things. Do you give that up if you come in later and you have to take the second pick? But if you have a better product and a better working environment, sooner or later you'll have those people.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll find you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I liked one of the things that said that the only advertising they did for hiring people was when they were just getting ready to go in and start a place, that they would go in, walk down the street and ask them if they'd want to work for Noodles and Company. Or they'd go into schools and just ask people. And then once they initially hired, they just planned on word of mouth from that point forward.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. So this next part here, we're talking about the, I guess you could say the early sections, the early results, if you will. Noodles and Company. So the first question that asks how it went was, what was the result of their early openings? And one thing has already been mentioned about food. What were some of the other results that they had?
Wasn't it that they put it in an area that wasn't quite ideal? Like later on, they started reaching out to the more upper class type of area, like geographically. I think one of the issues at the beginning was that they put it in an area that wasn't as geographically sound or marketable, I guess. I don't remember exactly what I said, but
I think I know what you're talking about. I don't exactly know where it said that, but I do remember one section where it talked about you found an opportunity to put it near college students or in a campus area or something. And I really started picking up, and I don't know exactly when that happened, but I do remember them mentioning that specifically.
yeah, they tried to put it like near upper class, and they started doing a little bit better, or a lot better actually, more upper scale areas.
Well, I think they also realized that they had to change a lot of their processes that they had there. Like Sarah said, it was a learning curve, and it set their minds that they were determined to make it work or see it through to the face plant that they were headed for. I think it just solidified how much they truly believed in what they were. And what they were doing. I know it says that the one point they all went into that store together and redecorated the whole thing. They realized they had to change the way they were producing the noodles. They had poor review, so they all went out and did they all went on a field trip and all went to visit different noodle places, and then came back and sat down and talked about what they were going to do about it. So it says they made a list of 15 weaknesses that they had to address in 6 key areas, and decided what they were going to do, and then gave individual tasks on how to do it. And I think that's what really changed it for them.
Oh yeah, that was after they went and visited all the other like the other little shops, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And when they came back and found their basement all a mess.
Poor people.
Yep. And just kind of add to that, financially speaking, they totally went downhill for a while.
Yep.
Okay. Now again, this next question is for the initial early opening, not what we kind of already talked about. So just keep that in mind. What was the organizational structure and team culture? Their early results. Again, key point early. So what was kind of their early plan, their early structure that way?
Sarah said it was a great idea, but a hot mess.
No video. So you're good.
I like that. I'm putting that in here just so you know. I'm putting that in the notes here.
And it was a couple of friends that had gotten together, and they were really working it hard. I mean, they were out getting personal loans. They were mortgaging their homes. They were
Maxing out their
doing
credit
different
cards.
things. Yeah, maxing out their credit cards. I mean, they were invested into it, and so they were, like I said, they were going to see it. They were either going to see it exceed and go, or they were going to do the face plant and hit hard. And so, I think that they didn't really have defined roles. They were all working together and trying to figure out who was going to do what and how they were doing it. You know, they had one person really doing the fundraising and doing different things, but one person is a construction manager, but that was really just kind of taking on jobs and going for it.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I like that. So we're coming up on the every guest, every bowl, every time kind of part here. But before we get there, real quick, one last question here asks, what was it that helped Noodles and Company turn the corner? And so obviously, I think it was, I don't remember exactly how far in, but all of a sudden when they figured out their financial woes in the business, it flipped the switch almost. So what was it that helped them do that?
I think it was when they went and sat down and really looked at what was good about other places, and then they came back and identified those 15 items that they needed to do and divided them up and took ownership for those. And when they did that, they really became a team to move on it, and they set themselves up with timelines and what they were going to do and how they were going to accomplish those things. And by developing that and bringing in a solid product that people wanted, that's what turned things around, and then they started getting some good recognition.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as well, one thing around that same time was right before they started financing for growth and really started opening I think it was their Boulder restaurant that did so well. They came up with a model for all the new noodles and companies to be coming out with. And once they started following that model, then that's when like a lot of different places they were able to grow quicker and quicker. So I think just having that model in place that it says workable workable model that seemed to work for them. And I think that's when one of the turning point times were.
Sarah said being willing to change and adapt to what was needed instead of just pushing forward in the ways that weren't working, dividing tasks and taking ownership and accountability to make the changes needed.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this next part here. Just going to actually read the first part if you're looking at it, but it says, what is it about the mantra, every guest, every bowl, every time, that helps form corporate culture?
Maybe just that their main focus is the people and maybe not the money. And I think if you're focused just on the money, then you probably won't make as much. But since they were focused on like delivering a good product, which would be the bowl, and focusing on the people, then I think they were able to expand.
Well, and I think that they kept it very simple. I mean, you look at businesses that have these big, huge mission statements and these things, but theirs was very simple. And I think that made it easy for them to pass that along and get buy-in with those, their managers and those things that were coming along. Because they were able to use that.
Yeah, I agree.
And their mantras, consistency. That's what Sarah said. It's short, sweet, easy to remember, and keeps the mission at the forefront of their minds and their employees. I feel like Sarah's at a disadvantage. We keep saying things as she's typing them.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad she's on and participating, honestly. Don't judge me for this. I don't know if I would be on if I had laryngitis, honestly, because I would be filling into it. But Sarah, good for you. So I appreciate your input there. So that's kind of a short and simple section there. I just want to cover because I think, at least for me, I know like when I look at a lot of companies, the ones that have the simple, sweet phrases, sayings, even mission statements, to me, those are the ones that stay with me, honestly. It's easy to remember for me, not only just working for them, but as a consumer, when I think about easy things or places I want to go, I go, oh, boom, like comes to my mind. So I like that Noodles and Company had that. So this growth strategy for the future part. So how do they plan to expand?
My personal opinion was that you stay with what you're doing well. You look at the way they'd been able to go out and raise money in the last couple of years. They were able to go find people to back them. And that was without great big backers. It was just going, little by little. And they were opening stores and I mean, they were booming. To have a goal of 300 stores 8 years after you open your first is pretty amazing. And I think, the big thing is keeping that control. And that's what I would worry about if they took the route of franchising. If you franchise, then you lose some of that control. Now you're giving that up to somebody else that, their business model may be something completely different, even though they're supposed to maintain that. They're investing in it and they may not have the same vision and values. Sarah says using the tools that they have helped them thus far and keeping with the same workable model. I think their model, like Jared said, their model was good. They knew what kind of store to build, where to put it, who to hire, and that's what they needed to keep doing.
Yeah, definitely. The kind of not the hint, but the thing it says here is expand offering and increasing reach to additional stores in the Midwest, and even eventually expand to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. I thought personally about that, but yeah, I would agree with that. Keeping the same values, stay with what they're doing well, and use the tools and the model that they have created to continue to expand.
I personally would disagree with them doing the franchisee situation because, like, they really have grown exponentially in just 8 years. I think they just keep going the way they're going. They're going to continue to grow. And if you give that power to someone else, I mean, like Grant was saying, it might go south and they might get a bad rep. So I say they just keep on going.
Yep. So, we talked about it. So, what challenges do they face from other major competitors with similar models?
Well, I know like you said, the big one that they were up against was Chipotle, which it's interesting because Chipotle started in the same market. They both started in Denver and really close to the same time frame. And Chipotle took the route of, they sold out half their company to McDonald's. Now, just a few years ago, Chipotle bought all that back. They used McDonald's as basically the funding to get them up and going and expand like they did, and they're international now. But it was interesting to watch that deal because I paid quite a bit of attention to it. The only reason he was able to do it and be successful is that he told McDonald's that even though they had the controlling shares, he was going to maintain control and choose where every restaurant went. He was going to have control to choose the menu, the design, and everything else, and they agreed to it. And he made that work, but it was a big gamble for him too.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I didn't know that. So I guess for that question then, so I guess Noodles and Company would face increasing pressure because of the growth that Chipotle has been seeing, I guess. It would have to compete with the growth.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Chipotle. There was a couple of other big companies that were, growing there. When you looked at Baja Fresh, that was just that whole market was just exploding at that time where it was a little higher quality food. It's not just your everyday fast food.
Yeah, there was kind of like a list of comparable public companies later on in the article, and some of them I thought were actually pretty similar. Like the Cheesecake Factory, thought that was similar because of like the location. You usually see Cheesecake Factory in like nicer areas as well as PF Chang's, maybe in like a nicer mall area or something like that. I think that's going to be their competition because they're going for the same demographic as is Noodles and Company, and they're all kind of in the same area.
And I will have to admit, I lived in Denver when all this was going on, so I was very familiar with both Noodles and Company and Chipotle, and I loved them.
Which one? All of them?
I still eat at Chipotle probably 2 days a week. But
don't stop now.
But Noodles and Company, I had one less than 2 blocks from where I worked in Denver. And oh, it was our favorite restaurant. We were so disappointed when we moved to Phoenix that it wasn't down here. So
there you go. Well, there's your franchisee opportunity then.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Sarah asked if any of us had heard of Freebirds. Never heard of that one.
She says like Chipotle, but better. Same idea, but more options.
Oh no! Don't be knocking on Chipotle.
She's getting on you, Graham.
Don't be getting on.
Coming out, shots fired.
No.
Oh, it's funny.
I actually did some work in the original Chipotle restaurant, so.
There you go. Nice work. Okay, I'm gonna skip this.
All right, I'll try Freebirds if I ever make it to Texas.
Same.
There you go. Good for you. Okay. So a couple things. I mean, it's not going to be super long tonight, but a couple things that I thought would be interesting for us to go over is for each of us, one at a time, to pick a recommendation that we would have taken if we were Kennedy, and then obviously defend our position with a couple facts or maybe some reasoning with what you think. But pick the recommendation that you think Kennedy should do for the future of Noodles and Company, and each one of us will kind of take our opportunity to do that. I was just curious to hear, maybe to see what each of us were thinking, and maybe if all of us thought the same or differently. But whoever wants to go first, just go right ahead.
I guess I could go first. Personally, I'm still standing by, just continuing with their model and what they've been doing. I think they should continue that expansion, but maybe seek to try and understand how they could be marketable to different types of people. Maybe, McDonald's is marketable to everybody. Maybe take some cues from them. And they've expanded everywhere. I think they should probably try and take a similar route if they wanted to get that big. If you don't want to get that big, you want to stay more exclusive, that's great. But imagine they're going to want to get big. So my suggestion would just be to try and seek for different demographics and expand to, Europe, Japan, China, places like that. So.
Okay. Cool. I like that. I guess I'll go ahead and go next. And don't put me up on a cross or shoot me for this, but honestly, for my case study specifically, I actually picked 2 options because I couldn't decide on one of them of what they could do to go forward. And again, I'm a little hesitant on this one, but I work for a company that did this, and it worked really well for them, and now they're buying them back. Is that they franchised initially to get that growth, to get that initial boom, or after they'd already gotten big, they took franchising so they could get more companies because people would be willing to open them up. And then once the company had more money, they would go back and buy them all back, kind of like what I guess Chipotle did. So I think that they should actually look into franchising as an option to expand at a greater rate to keep their plan going, because they said they're going to have to slow it down. And I think if people like the company enough or heard about it, there would be a few people willing to franchise, just have some things in the clauses, and then initially down the road just buy them back. The second thing I think they should do is open one store outside of the U.S., maybe just to test the market. And if you fail, you learn from that. Maybe learn where not to put it, where to put it, whatever. Or if you do well, then maybe it can help you see where you can work to do better at other countries or whatever, so forth, whatever. But that's kind of what I thought about.
Yeah, and I guess I'm torn on that one. Like I said, I think they have the opportunity to expand faster if they use the option of going out and franchising, because now you're using other people's money. But I think the better option is really if you can find that big investor that's willing to take some of that risk and go into it with you. That ultimately that's what Chipotle did was get McDonald's to front the money for building all the stores, and put them into the markets wherever they were, rather than Chipotle having to front all that cash. And they were able to slow down their spending until they were able to get those up and running, and then come back in and buy them back later on. And I think that's a good option, but at the same time, it's a huge risk if you're allowing somebody else that much more control into your business. So if they want to maintain that very tight control that they had, what really set them apart, they have to make sure that they structure any advancement that they do in that way that they keep that control.
And then, Sarah, I know you probably have to type, but I guess did you want to make kind of a quick synopsis of what you thought? Oh, good, there she is.
She said, I'm right there with Jared as far as staying with the workable model. I would not go with franchising because I think it's easier to lose the culture. I think they should target the international market with a vacation spot or two. Well, that's interesting. That are highly saturated with Americans or have a similar economy to the markets they're thriving in. Vacation spot idea is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool. Well, that's good. Again, I just thought it would be interesting to hear all of us think about it, talk about it, see what we would have done. But just an interesting overview there. And just so you all know, for the notes, I just put each of us took turns doing this in the group meeting. And if he wants to learn to actually see what we put, he's going to have to watch it to hear us out there. So I know that we normally don't talk about this as often, but I thought it would be interesting to connect it today. So in your mind, each of your minds is probably going to be different. What gospel principles apply to the specific situation with Noodles and Company?
We'll all sit here silent and wait for Sarah to answer first.
I guess while she's typing, there was one that came to my mind, almost like the good, better, best. I mean, obviously, he probably doesn't know which one is good, better, best decision. That's kind of where he's at. Each decision will probably give a company some growth, but which one does he go with? Is it the good choice, the better choice, the best choice? That's just kind of what came to my mind.
First thing that came to my mind was like missionary work, like expanding, but I don't know where that would go.
Well, one of the things that I was just thinking about is kind of like what we hear about lately is go back to the basics, keeping it simple. It really is the primary answers of, say your prayers, read your scriptures, attend your meetings and those kind of things. And that's what they went back to, was going back to those basics and making sure that they were doing those well in their stores and produce, so that they had a good product for every customer that came in the door every time. And that's what their success was. And that, I guess I would say that's the same thing for us as members of the church. If we focus on those basics and we look at doing that, then that's what'll help us out we should have a good product in who we are.
Okay. And I guess I don't know if Sarah, if you're going to add something or not.
Looks like she's still typing.
Okay, I just want to make sure we get her included in this because, I mean, it is interesting sometimes to see the principles that apply to different situations. Okay, while she's typing, there's one thing I want to add, not add, just talk about. I'll admit I didn't really have much time this week to look up, I guess, the results or what they chose to do. Did anybody else have the curiosity to do that by chance?
I didn't yet. But I'm definitely curious to know when they're building a store down here.
There you go. Maybe they'll have it on a website or something somewhere. Who knows?
I haven't seen anything.
We don't have one here in Rexburg, so that's unfortunate there.
They
I think
are
they're building
awesome.
a Panda Express though, and I think Panda Express is kind of going for the same type of thing that Noodles and Co.
That's
is.
true. Actually, I would agree with that. I think they are. There is one in Idaho Falls, though. I'm pretty sure I saw a Noodles and Company in Idaho Falls, but I'm not.
There is one built there. My sister-in-law lives
Awesome.
there, and she used to live with us in Denver and said that they just built one.
Oh,
I haven't made it up there to visit yet.
We'll have to go check it out then. I've never been.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to look stuff up on the internet to see if I can't find, what's going on with Noodles and Co. right now, but not finding anything too crazy.
Yeah, because one of the things it says here in the agenda, or the thing they give you for being team leader, it mentions, oh, hey, what do you know? Guess what? I just finally got into the chat thing. Interesting. Anyway, it says that without using a Wikipedia source, that we need to find a couple articles that talk about what they've done and if we agree with the path they've taken. So that's why it's interesting, why it's hard to find something of what they did.
I went to the internet and I just typed in franchising to see if they went with that, and I'm pulled up to a page here that says Noodles and Company World Kitchen franchising. So I think they did go with franchising.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, there's your chance, Grant.
Yeah, no. I have friends that work in the restaurant industry, and no.
There you go. Well, at least you're going to go to it then. Taste it when you see it.
Says we ask simply that our franchise partners work alongside us to deliver the high-quality noodles experience our guests come back for. Real food, real cooking, real flavors. So interesting. It just gives a little bit of information about franchising. So they did do that.
That's good. Now, I wonder, I really honestly wonder if they did more than one route, too. I wonder if they maybe chose some franchising and also used some other things we talked about. But anyway, just curious there.
Hey, it says Noodles and Company coming soon
Hey, there you go.
to Tempe.
Wow, Sarah's writing an essay, isn't she?
No kidding.
Yeah, I was just gonna wait for her before we kind of get ready to close up here. But wait, is this saying it's coming soon or it's already open in Tempe?
Uh,
Because I found an address for it. If you want to know,
yeah, it does say that there is one there.
I guess in the marketplace. I don't know where that's at, but that's where it says.
Yeah, it says there's 2 of them. I'm going to have to check that out.
There you go.
Arrowhead Crossing. I'm going there on Saturday.
Nice. Well, hey, good thing we found that out.
Find out. Hey, I love Noodles and Company, man.
Yeah,
what's good to get? Obviously, they have noodles, but like, what is one of their good dishes they have? I guess.
On a cold day, they have the best chicken noodle soup ever.
All right. Nice. Well, that would be great for us up here.
Yeah. It's already started
They
snowing.
don't show one in Idaho. They show it in Bozeman, Montana, and Missoula. But I know my sister-in-law said something about one in Idaho Falls.
Well, they have one. I'm pretty sure I saw it because I was just there a couple days ago, and I didn't really care to notice because I didn't really know what it was. But yep, found the address. It's Grand Teton Mall.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it's at Grand Teton.
Well, I mean, I think it's in the parking lot of the mall, but it's there.
I can read Sarah's. It says, I think remembering what is important and keeping that at the forefront of our minds. I think so many times we get bogged down with the things we view as important and push aside the things that truly matter. I think we have to keep in mind what is best for us and our families, even when we have good and better, but may not be the best for us. I also think keeping with the basics of doing the daily things make us stay on track. I think keeping an open mind and being willing to change when we are directed to do so and stay humble and always having a grateful heart for the success that you have seen thus far. I think just keeping the Savior as the guiding light in our lives and sticking to the workable model He has laid out for us will guarantee our success. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. It's kind of too bad that I just finally figured out that I finally can see the chat now. But yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. Really is a lot to learn and a lot to keep in mind. And obviously, we found that Noodles and Company is in Arizona, or in Tempe, and it is in Idaho Falls. So we're good there. I'm sure they may have some in Texas. I hope. But ultimately, so to kind of sum up here, I typed everything down. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to the discussion? That's it for tonight. There's nothing else really we need to talk about. But is there anything that needs to be added?
I'll just add that I did check out Freebirds, and Texas is definitely hogging them. They have 62 of them. California has 16. Utah has 3. So they could share the love, I guess, if it's that good.
Also, I found that a grand total for franchise-owned restaurants, how much it would cost to open one, is kind of interesting. So from $605,000 to 1.1 million, almost 1.2 million, is how much it would cost to open up a Noodles & Co.
Chump change.
So yeah, yeah, I got that. No problem.
I don't have that kind of money at all.
So just an interesting fact.
Huh. That is interesting.
Good to know. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for being on the meeting tonight. And oh, that's too bad. I didn't really post 5. That's too bad. But anyway, thanks for being on the meeting tonight. Is there anything else you want to add? Go ahead and add it. But I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and post the video and the notes on the discussion board of the case study activity tonight. there's anything else that you need to let us know, just go ahead and text. But thanks for being on tonight.
That or I was going to ask, Jared, did you have some good news to share with all of us?
Oh yeah, we're having a girl.
Oh yeah.
All right,
Awesome.
congratulations.
Yeah, hey, you remember that? That's great. Yep,
Nice.
having a girl.
That's
So,
All right. Awesome.
all right. See you guys.
Well, thanyou.
yep. See ya.
All right, we'll talk to y'all later.
Yep.